We're kicking off spooky season by diving into the darkest aesthetics online. Aesthetics are a combination of content and style that depicts precise themes like pastel goth or Y2K. And I mentioned both of these aesthetics in my past video about hyper feminine aesthetics, so check that out if you did. The aesthetics that we're focusing on today dive into more melancholic components. Each aesthetic creates unique feelings of eeriness, nostalgia, and we should already be familiar with nostalgia if you are familiar with my channel, because my channel dives into all of the ins and outs of nostalgia and how it continues to influence media today. If you're interested in that, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. The aesthetics that we're looking at today, though, also highlight feelings of apprehension when in a place or situation that is outside of your norms. You'll see a lot of shared elements like gothicism, existentialism, discomfort, a feeling of dread, and possibly some comfort too. So I think that this is an appropriate time to address the elephant in the room. The themes that we are diving into today are not for the faint of heart. So if you're feeling particularly vulnerable to the heavy topics that we'll be covering today, the rest of this video may not be ideal for you. I would suggest maybe go checking out one of my other videos in the catalog and possibly skipping this one. So I'll just wait for you to leave. Dark academia. Effortlessly cool, largely withdrawn. Sitting by the candlelight in a dimly lit centuries-old library on a dreary day, ideal for dark academia followers. This aesthetic romanticizes classic literature, like anything written by Charles Dickens, the pursuit of self-discovery, and the thirst for knowledge and learning. The aesthetic first emerged in the mid-2010s on Tumblr, and that's a common thing that I'm seeing as I keep studying aesthetic, is Tumblr seems like it was the mother of a lot of the aesthetics that I have covered previously and also today. Might be a video that is worth really investigating more. This aesthetic first emerged in the mid-2010s on Tumblr and Pinterest. Book publishers capitalized on this aesthetic and used this phrase to create and advertise to young adults, making this a new fictional microgenre in its early stages. Dark academia primarily stems from upper-class European cultures of the 19th century, Gothicism, and American prep. The upper class of this time period emphasized a liberal education in which Latin, rhetoric, and classics were taught as subjects. The pursuit of education creates an alluring vibe and cultivates curiosity. Other than its romanticization of education, dark academia also obsesses over motives including criminality, cults, and murder. Popular movies that demonstrate dark academia include Suspiria, which will be on my Halloween film challenge or Halloween movie challenge for this upcoming month of October. This is our third year in a row that I'm doing this, and all the details will be on Instagram. So if you're interested in binge watching the classics this upcoming Halloween season, definitely follow me for more details. Dead Poets Society, Good Will Hunting, The Talented Mr. Ripley, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and Knives Out. Scuffed loafers, plaid clothing, wool coats, and sweater vests are staples in the closets of dark academia lovers. Or sweaters tied over the shoulder, prep school uniforms that include layers like blazers, pleated skirts, and regimental striped ties. Common colors for dark academia are earth tones, black, brown, tan, burgundy, and gray. Twilight Core. Remember when the biggest problem that we used to have back in the day was deciding whether or not we were Team Edward or Team Jacob? In case you were curious, I was more of a Team James, and he could pin me up to a wall anytime. Lovers of this aesthetic are infatuated with naturalism, ominous staring, and slow-mo treadmill walking vampire baddies. TikTok experienced a Twilight renaissance in fall of 2021. The aesthetic functions and of course stems from the nostalgia of the 2008 film Twilight. It romanticizes suburban neighborhoods tucked away in luscious forests. Deep forest environments are also a setting that followers of this aesthetic will love. Go-to staples for the Twilight Core audience include referencing a lot of Bella Swan style. The aesthetic pulls from early 2010s fall fashion, and this can be primarily made up of like gray long sleeve button-up shirts that can be easily layered over like baby doll top or layered under baby doll top, dark boot cut denim jeans that can be paired with pretty much anything, Converse sneakers that will pair with those dark boot cut denim jeans, because you gotta give a little peek of the very worn out Converse sneakers, and then you can pair all that with the dread of your centuries old lover playing a high school student. Common colors for Twilight Core include muted brown, dark green, gray, black, and also dark red. Liminal spaces. Liminal spaces is an online art aesthetic that elicits feelings of uneasiness and emptiness. Typical spaces include empty malls, empty hallways in school, meeting rooms, indoor playgrounds, and much more. On May 12, 2019, an anonymous 4chan user posted in the paranormal board posts disquieting images that just feel off. The images posted gave rise to the liminal spaces aesthetic that we know of today. The aesthetic also hit new heights when a short film was created by Pixels. The film shows first-person footage as they explore backrooms, which seem to be more like endless hallways. All the while they're exploring these backrooms, they're being followed by a mysterious figure that makes very unsettling noises. And this also gave rise to the popular backrooms trend that you may commonly swipe by occasionally on YouTube or on TikTok. Those that viewed this short film became obsessed with the aesthetic because of its setting in a very familiar, vaguely familiar space. However, this aesthetic can also be incredibly subjective. What appears nostalgic to one person may appear more unsettling to another, while some may find the image bland with no emotion attached to it. Colors for the liminal space aesthetic include cream yellow, typical kind of corporate building colors, whites, gray, and black. Weirdcore. Weirdcore is an online aesthetic and art movement that incorporate low-quality visual images that have been constructed to convey feelings of confusion, disorientation, and nostalgia. This aesthetic draws influence from visuals that were digitally made in the early days of the internet. Think back to Microsoft Paint for like Windows 98. Remember when we would like spend hours upon hours creating these abstract works of art? Blinky edits of the early 2000s also heavily reminded me of this particular trend. I specifically remember spending hours on Blinky making sure my profile images were up to par as I would try to copy a lot of the popular emo girls at the time. Weirdcore can trigger comfort, but sometimes it probably reminds people of a nicer time in their lives. It can also trigger a bad memory too though, and sometimes phobia. Weirdcore can trigger comfort and some because it probably reminds them of a nicer time in their life, but it can also trigger a bad memory or phobia, leaving them feel confused and scared, said Gibb, one of the moderators of the Weirdcore Reddit thread and core administrator of the Discord server dedicated to the art movement. Weirdcore can be easily recognized through its use of amateur editing, primitive digital graphics, lo-fi photography, and image compression. The art aesthetic frequently uses locations such as roadside attractions, playgrounds, vacant houses, or abandoned malls, but also highlights elements of poor lighting, compression effects, and old-fashioned decor. Images can be entirely made up of digital elements made into a collage. That can be considered weirdcore. The closest fashion aesthetic that I would relate to weirdcore would probably be maximalism. Maximalism is a fashion trend that layers mix and match colors, patterns, and prints. And I compare maximalism to weirdcore because of the layers upon layers that weirdcore has. Maximalism also shares that same element where if you start to collab or start to pull in different objects from different industries, it might be confusing to outside viewers. Common color palettes for weirdcore include pastel hues and neon colors. Traumacore. Alright, so this is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty of dark aesthetics, so hold on to your britches. Traumacore is an imagery aesthetic that delves into themes of abuse and trauma. Images in this aesthetic evoke a bittersweet emotion due to the use of cute elements like Senryo characters paired along with themes that can be much darker. The aesthetic derives from the popular Tumblr aesthetic Maru of the early 2010s. Remember back in the day when we were on Tumblr and we were looking for different types of like styles and aesthetics solely using hashtags and keywords like hashtag creepy and hashtag cute, and that was our only source source of finding some of these niche themes that we're looking at today. Marut was an aesthetic that expressed hyper-feminine and childlike softness with grunge and American Gothic elements. Traumacore uses the same premise of combining childlike, angelic theme and dark subject matter relating to depression, suicide, eating disorders, and abuse. Traumacore edits and art are usually made by people that are struggling with their own trauma and use it as a way to vent. The visual aesthetic can help people cope. Cute images are usually there to represent purity which was stripped away from the victim. Key colors for the art form include shades of pastel, particularly pink, white, gray, and red. Yami Kawaii. Yami Kawaii is a Japanese fashion aesthetic that has evolved from Yumi Kawaii, which means dreamlike cute. Kawaii, of course, means cute. Yami means dark, so put two and two together. It's a part of anti-kawaii, a spectrum of Japanese aesthetic which add opposing elements to typical kawaii style in order to leave a greater impact. Yami Kawaii adds opposing kawaii style and accessorizes with references to mental health issues and darker themes. Accessories that complete your Yami Kawaii outfit include skulls, guns, syringes filled with blood that could be possibly leaking, and gauze wrapped around the wrist. Although Japan has one of the highest suicide rates, talking about depression and mental illness can be very taboo, which is why Yami Kawaii is so interesting, because it's an expression of something that should not be mentioned. So like Traumacore, it's not just a fashion trend, but it's also a coping mechanism for those who are hurting and are looking for a way to express those complex emotions. Go-to colors for Yami Kawaii include shades of black, red, pink, and purple. Medical core. Medical core is an aesthetic that involves medical-related paraphernalia. The aesthetic does not aim to romanticize, fetishize, or glorify mental health issues, any type of medical-related trauma, but really aims to act as a coping mechanism for those who need it. A lot of medical core imagery include medical tools and combines those with like artistic angles and views. Medical core fashion can include elements like surgical masks, hospital scrubs, latex gloves, hospital gowns, lab coats, bandages, and much more. Band-aids with Sanrio characters or even with cute like patterns are extremely popular. For this aesthetic, some people choose also to kind of emulate a sick look, so they'll accessorize with things like gas masks, eye patches, bruises that were made by makeup, gauze, and large band-aids. Medical core's go-to colors include white, red, and some pastels, especially like pink, lavender, blue, and mint. After hours. Okay, before we get into our last aesthetic for today, if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a big old thumbs up and make sure that you subscribe, because the last time I checked, I was at 61 subscribers. I'm really aiming for 100. Also, I have some really cool content coming up for this entire month of October, as a lot of it will be themed around kind of dark subject matter and dark nostalgia, so definitely stay tuned for that. After hours is an art form aesthetic. The aesthetic inspires feelings of loneliness in a usually populated setting late at night. The appeal of the after hours aesthetic is the motionless mystery. These places are usually brimming with light and movement, and now there's literally no one in sight. I don't know why, but looking at a lot of the imagery in the after hours aesthetic vaguely reminds me of looking at Goosebumps book covers. It kind of gives me that same vibe. You feel that kind of same way looking at some of these images? Please comment below. Setting is commonly in a dimly lit parking lot, outside a restaurant, skating rink, and much more. Fluorescent lighting, open 24-hour signage, and street lights are often paired with dark contrasting shadows. The earliest reference of after hours that I could find was the artwork Nighthawks by Edward Hopper in 1942. The aesthetic reminds me of kind of like walking home after a late night at the bar, possibly after you had just like one too many drinks and everything's kind of blurry and fuzzy. The night appears to move a lot slower, but there's no telling what is hiding in the shadows and also what's occurring behind closed doors. Oh, that was almost like home right there. Common colors of the after hours aesthetic include darker colors due to shadow, golds, reds, yellow, and sometimes a hint of neon colors. If you enjoyed this rundown of dark online aesthetic, please make sure you go ahead and give this video a like, as I'm going to be doing a lot more dark nostalgic themed content this upcoming month. See you guys later.